We should just get started. So how is everyone doing? It's good to see everyone back after a couple of weeks. Oh, I don't think I have too much issue with heat tonight. Now that cold front went through. They actually canceled all sports at our middle school after school today because of the rain that was going to come through. And unfortunately, I haven't heard how it went. Our marching band was marching at the Big E today. And I was trying to remember when the parade is. They do an afternoon parade. They might have gotten the parade in before any rain came through. But yeah, it's been nice. I've gone almost every year that they go. But this is the first year I've had a Thursday night class, and they always go on a Thursday, so I couldn't go this year. But it's okay. You guys are actually like saving my arteries because I'm not up there eating fried cheese curd and fried Oreos and fried whatever. What do they have now? Fried martinis. Or,
they make is off the charts good.
yeah, there's a booth that does fried cheese curd, and we always stop by there and get fried cheese curd. No, they don't. That's the problem, and they're so tasty. I grew up where Penn State University is, and Penn State's a big agricultural school, and they had an on-campus creamery, and so we used to go, and you could just buy bags of cheese curd, and that was just like a snack my sister and I would eat when we were growing up. It's like squeaky cheese, like little nuggets of cheese, but they squeak when you eat them. So, but very salty. All right. Well, we've got a bunch of things to get through. This, I think, actually looks like a little more because several of these things are really kind of one big activity that will cover a couple of things all at once. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in your Moodles tonight, the Moodle Cloud Moodles, because I want to start being able to look at these. And in order to do that, you guys are going to have to add me as a user and enroll me in the class so that I can go to your site and log in. So I'm going to walk you through that process of how to do that. And I'm also going to have all of you put a dialogue activity on your Moodle. And that'll give me a way to provide you feedback. It's a tool that I've used on these Moodles in the past. Basically allows us just to set up a two-person conversation. So I can take a look at how things are going. I can give you comments. You can give me feedback or ask me questions and so on. Because I want to start, now that the Moodles hopefully are starting to get underway, I want to start checking in on those regularly and giving you feedback and kind of seeing how those are coming together. So we're going to take a look at that. The main topic tonight is video. Now that you've all gotten completely frustrated and angry at graphics programs, we're going to make it more complicated by making those graphics move. So we're going to talk about video tonight. There's a lot of similarities in some ways between some of the principles behind video and behind graphics. So we're going to kind of bridge that gap and see what we can learn about video. We're going to be doing another activity tonight like we did with the graphics, where I've got some sample instructional videos for you to look at, to assess, to converse about. And in the process of doing that, I'm going to demonstrate for you the Moodle Wiki activity. Again, I'm trying each week to have you guys engage in a couple of the different Moodle activities so you get a sense of how they work, so that if you want to incorporate any of them in your Moodle, you'll kind of have an understanding about what they do. So we're going to use a wiki this time. Last time we used the database activity. So we'll look at the wiki activity for that. I'll show you, again, like I did with graphics, a couple of the online possibilities for creating video if you don't have your own video software. Although I think these days, almost every machine, whether you're Windows or Mac or Windows or PC or whatever, usually has some kind of a video program on it. I know it used to be Windows Movie Maker, was that what it was called? And I think that doesn't really exist anymore, but I know there's a camera app that's just built in that you can use to shoot videos and do some basic editing and so on. And a lot of Macs already have iMovie on them. So, but we'll take a look at a couple of those. And then your TIPs, your technology integration plans, we're going to talk about what the next phase is on those, which is essentially going to be doing a needs assessment. So I've looked, for those of you who got the first phase of the TIPs in, I took a quick look over those. what we're basically going to be doing is taking what was the last paragraph of that, which was where you were starting to talk about what you wanted to target for your plan, and you're going to sort of blow that up and do a needs assessment around that idea to really try to figure out what it is you're addressing and to what extent you need to address it and so on. So that'll be what we finish up with for tonight. I'm trying to keep the amount of sort of new work between now and next week to a minimum. There will be a new forum, which we haven't had a forum since the first week, so I'm going to throw another one out there. And it'll be working on this TIP thing over the course of the next week. You can start looking at creating videos based on what we do tonight. I won't make that official assignment until next week for the following week. Again, kind of doing this leapfrogging of learning about an area, getting a week to work on the area, and then producing something using those technologies. So that's the scope of tonight. But before we get to any of that, and some of you have already been bringing stuff up, questions, concerns. I know because we didn't see each other in person last week, especially maybe if there's any questions about the graphics assignment or what you're supposed to be doing with that, or anything else we've covered so far. Was it helpful to kind of have a week where it was mainly about just wrapping up things from previous weeks? Yeah. Hopefully.
I appreciate how organized you are. I have some professors that make their assignments rather unclear what you're actually supposed to do.
Okay.
And thank you.
I appreciate that. I try, but
teacher, I think it shows.
but if you do have questions, anything that comes up, again, you've got through the Moodle, you can contact me. I always put that form at the end of each week's thing for questions and comments. If you want to get in touch with me directly, you can email. You can also use the Remind as well as a way to get to me. So just kind of scanning through things. There are some things that are missing right now from some people, and again, I'm not a big one about it has to be done by this day, but I also want to make sure that people aren't getting so far behind that they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. They're going to get to the last couple weeks of class and be like, oh my gosh, I've got everything I've got to get done. And because a lot of this does build on what you've done previously, it's good to kind of have everything settled. So if anyone's feeling overwhelmed or needs a little extra time or needs some clarification on something, please at any point just let me know. So that I can do what I can to help. And I can certainly adjust the amount of work if that's going to be helpful. But I also have to realize that this is a graduate level class for a master's program, and the college expects me to assign a certain amount of work through it as well. So, all right, so nothing else, just okay. All right, well then we may as well jump into the first thing, which is getting the Moodle stuff taken care of. So what you will need to do is go into your Moodle Cloud site, which hopefully you all know how to get there. And again, I'll walk through this on the screen as well with my Moodle, so that hopefully you'll be seeing exactly what I'm seeing. I worked for a little while at Home Depot. Every time I go onto Moodle, like their orange is pretty much the same color as the Home Depot orange. So it kind of triggers me. I'm kind of like, oh, is this Home Depot? Oh, no, this isn't Home Depot. Like they actually, like, what they tell their employees is, live the orange life. Like they embrace that color as their symbol. I think they actually have the exact tint of that orange copyrighted so that people can't use that orange and make people think of Home Depot. So, all right, is everyone in?
Our test class or like the unit?
Your actual project class, because that's what I want to be able to go in and poke around on. So the way, for instance, when you signed up for our class Moodle through the university, you were able to self-enroll. One of the ways that Moodle Cloud is different is because it is limited in terms of how many users and so on, is you as the site administrator actually are the one that has to enroll people. So if for some reason down the road you want to use Moodle Cloud, just realize that you're the one that is going to need to do a little bit of setup in terms of the users. So it's going to be two parts. We're going to create a new user, which will be me, and then I'm also going to show you how to enroll me in the class so that when I log in, I immediately am taken to your class. So if you're on the home page, and this is not in your, actually I shouldn't have told you to go to the course yet, sorry. This is back on just your home dashboard page. We got to go here first. You should have on the sidebar a site administration tab, and you want to go to that. And this is where we set up new courses and things like that. We want to go to the second tab next to site administration, which says users. And surprise, surprise, what we want to do is add a new user. Now you can bulk add. I think they give you a template, like an Excel template, where you can fill in a whole bunch of people and then upload that. So if you're trying to add an entire class and you don't want to have to go through and type each person's thing in individually and create them individually, you can do bulk adding of students. But tonight we're just adding me. So you'll go to add new user. And there's a bunch of stuff on this page, but all we're really going to worry about are the 4 things that are required plus a password. So for me, so that I'm using the same password for everybody, it's going to be Prof Miller, Profmiller. We're leaving it as manual accounts. That's in fact the only option we have at the moment, so that means you're adding it. Please don't suspend my account. I haven't done anything yet that warrants suspension, so leave that. And rather than having it generate a password and send it to me, initially I'm just going to have you all use the same password for me. And then the first time I log in, I'll be able to change it. So it says click to enter text for password. And just to keep everything kind of consistent, we're just going to flip around the username. So it's going to be Miller, MILLER PROF. All lowercase. So Miller, or Prof Miller is the username, and Miller Prof. And then do click the box that says force password change underneath that. So that'll let me get in once, and then I'll reset the password to something else. I trust you guys, but if I kept it the same, then any of you could log into anyone else's Moodle and mess around. Not that you would ever do that. All right, and then the only other 3 fields we need here are first name and last name. My first name, if you don't know already, is David, and the last name is Miller. And then in terms of an email address, use the my CCSU email, which is millerd@ccsu.edu. The rest of the stuff you can just leave blank and so on. So if you then scroll all the way down to the bottom of that screen, there's the orange button or the colored button that says create user. Create the user. And now you should have it should pop you back to the user screen. You should have you on there as a user, and you should now also have me on there as a user. All right? We're successful?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So then the other thing is, now that I'm in the system, now I'd like to be added to your class. So what you'll do now is, however you want to get there, you can go back to the home, or you can go to My Courses, but go to your actual project class. In my case, it's my test course here. And on there, where you want to go is, again, in the sidebar. We're not in site administration now. Now you want to go to the participants tab, which is right underneath the name of the class at the top of the list, above badges and competencies and grades and all that stuff. So if you click on participants, what it will do is show you who's currently in the class. You want to enroll users. And then it will give you a list of, if you go in the search box, it'll.
Still enroll like that.
You're right. It should have 2 L's, shouldn't it?
Yeah, that's strange.
Maybe it's a British spelling. Maybe Moodle is. Anyway, so if you go in the search box, you can either search for me, but because there's only a couple users, it'll probably give you a list. Pick the one that we just added, which is the Miller D at CCSU, and then say enroll users. And now I will be a user in that class. So, and then the last thing I want you to do, and hopefully you trust me enough to know that I won't go in and change anything, is where my role is listed. It's listed as a student right now. If you click on the pencil on that, I want you to, what's going on here? I want you to turn me into a teacher. You can X out the student role if you want to, because I can always go in. All right. And then that should be all set. So that'll just give me access. If you're having an issue with your Moodle or something, it'll allow me to go into editing mode on your Moodle and kind of look behind the scenes in case there's something I need to take a look at or some way that I can help there. But I promise not to go in and start changing anything. So, all right. So then the last thing is I need to know where your Moodle is. So what I've done is what you need, you don't actually need the whole course, although you can grab that. So if you're on like your course homepage, is just to copy that URL. And then back in our class Moodle, under week 5, there's an activity. I'd set it up as an assignment because it's the easiest way to do it. Moodle project URL posting. If you can just go in there and create a post and just paste the text of the URL in there. It won't be an attachment or anything, but I think you could just put it in as the text on the.
I can make it a comment.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Comment. Bam. Say a comment.
Where was the comment button?
So instead of adding a submission, you just do a submission comment.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. I mean, as long as you can see it, I assume it's fine.
Yeah, no, it should. I don't ever get to see what it looks like to post an assignment because I'm obviously in here as an administrator.
Are we just copying the URL link? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I just need. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I just need the URL. And what that way I've got something that I can actually then know how to get to your Moodle. So yeah, just put it in as a comment. So I've got Nick's, I've got Vincent's, I've got JD's, got Tim's. So Joe, you know where you're headed with that. Doop, 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 doop. It's still not showing up. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, so now what I will be able to do, I'll move all of those into a link page so that I can get to them quickly. But basically my plan is going forward is to somewhat regularly, maybe not every week, but more like every other week, to go in, kind of take a look at the progress that you've made, see if you've got any questions or if there's any feedback that I can provide. So that now I'll have access. In the past, when we were using the university's Moodles, I had immediate access to all of your Moodles because I was set up as an administrator access on them. But again, now because we're trying out this Moodle Cloud route, we have to go through this. So, but it's all good. It just means more work on my part, but I'm willing to do that. Okay, so that is really all we had to do on that, is to get all of that set. So we're good there. So let's talk video. What sort of experience or background do any of you have already in terms of, have you ever made videos? Have you ever done any editing? Yes, no, maybe.
It's like high school.
High school.
So not much. We had to make movies for my film and text class. That was it.
Gotcha.
It's really good. It's about zombies.
Awesome. My wife has the front license plate on her car says, the hardest part of the zombie apocalypse is going to be pretending I'm not excited. So we tend to watch, this is probably too much information, but so we have a property that it's about 2.5 acres, and 2 of our property lines are state forest. And we've been having to do a lot of brush cutting and clearing and stuff. The property had been unoccupied for about 10 years before we bought it. So it was just being overtaken. So over the years, we've trimmed a lot of brush. And we tend to sort of pile it up right along the property line between our yard and the state forest. Well, we started referring to it as our zombie defense perimeter. And my daughter, who's now 13, but she was in kindergarten when we first moved in, refers to it as that as well. And I've heard her do it in public too. And I have to wonder, like someday in a class, she's going to mention something about her parents' zombie defense perimeter. Casual, and the teacher's going to be like, I wonder if I've got to check in on those parents. I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, it's all in good fun. All right, so video. I mean, maybe before we sort of look at anything, like what would be the point of video, or what can you see would be strengths of video, particularly from an instructional standpoint? Like we looked at graphics, and I think we all have a pretty good grasp of how graphics can be used instructionally because we see them all the time. I mean, every time we open up a textbook and there's a diagram, that's a graphic. So we see that a lot. How does video compare to that? Are there things that you think video can do that graphics can't, or vice versa? Just kind of open discussion of what role you think video might be playing.
So I feel like depending on the video and how it's created, like your tone of voice or how you're doing it, like interest level, I feel like it can engage your students more.
Okay.
Interesting to watch.
Why?
I feel like when you hear someone talking to you, it's a lot different than just having to read something yourself, and it's less student driven. And you actually won't have to watch and listen to a video. Well, again, depending on what you use in your video, the content of the video, I think could be more captivating for students.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to, or
It was similar stuff. You did it.
I was just gonna say that like an additional benefit could just be the fact that students can kind of go at their own pace with video. If they need to rewatch something, they can rewatch it. If they need to pause it to process or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, particularly if students have the control over the playback, that it gives them a chance to review material or to see material as many times as they want. Why would, I mean, you were making the case that video is somehow more engaging than graphics. Why might that be the case? I mean, kind of taking a big picture view, like what is it about humans that might make that true?
I think it's just sort of like, like YouTubers, and that whole thing is really popular now, and kind of the, like, having that, not, obviously it's not the same as watching somebody play video games or something, but, like, modeling what you're going to do on a video and having them be able to look at it at home, it's a little bit more connected to what they're doing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and stimulating too.
What's that?
It's more stimulating than a stationary graphic.
Yeah, I mean, I would make the case without maybe getting too much into human physiology and all. I would believe that we as human creatures are sort of more wired to respond to moving imagery than we are to still imagery. We process the world around us and the way that it moves in a way that I think is different than just looking at a still image. watching somebody speak and hearing them speak is obviously a very different experience than seeing their words on a page. You know, the difference between a text and a Skype or something like that. We get a lot more information out of particularly seeing someone talk when they present than we do out of either just hearing or just seeing words. So, you know, there's a place. It is another tool for the toolbox. Video is not the perfect tool for everywhere, just like a graphic is not the perfect tool. But there are, I think, a lot of similarities between the two because they are basically both very visual media. Although obviously with movies, you're incorporating audio as well. And we're actually going to look at audio next in a couple of weeks. That'll be our next area to look at. So what I would like us to do is I have, like I did with graphics, I do have a relatively short article that I like to use because it's I think in very clear language, and I think it lays out a couple of easy to understand core principles that that are good to keep in mind when it comes to doing video work and using video. What I might ask when we get done, I'd like to, I mean, we're going to read it, but I'd like to, when we're done as part of the discussion, think a little bit about whether there are parallels or connections that we can make between some of the information in this article and what we learned a few weeks ago with the whole Gestalt principle thing, and to see if there's some connections we can make there. But then maybe also where are the differences? What are some things that maybe need to be taken into account with a video that go beyond what you would have to take into account if you were just creating a still graphic? So yeah, so the article is right on the Moodle. It says instructional video article. So just start by, I mean, it's only 6 pages and it's 6 pages of rather large type. Take a few minutes and just read down through the article. Take notes if you like to take notes or notice things. And then when we're done, we'll have a little bit of a discussion, and I will start to move us on to the wiki activity. All right, how we doing? Good? All finished? All right, so before we go into trying to apply some of what you just read and some discussions and some actual videos, just want to get some commentary on key takeaways or things that you saw or so on. So maybe as a way to frame this, I've got this question up here. What should you keep in mind when creating instructional video? Or how would you achieve those results? What sorts of things stood out at you from the article in terms of things to pay attention to? Sure, get us
I
started.
think the overlap with the Gestalt.
Yeah,
is that how you say
I
it?
love saying Gestalt,
Was
yes.
more than I expected in terms of, like, obviously segmenting in a graphic is different than a video, but the idea is the same.
Yeah, if you think, what would have been the closest thing to segmenting from the Gestalt principles, if you happen to remember?
Close together.
Yeah, the proximity.
Yeah.
So by putting things near each other, that essentially groups them on a page together. And with some of the examples we looked at, and that's kind of what they're saying with segmenting, that, you know, think of how you divide up the content and try to put stuff together that belongs together within the video rather than kind of jumping all over the place.
And
Yeah.
part of that, I think, is the whole like being organized, not overwhelming your viewer,
Mm-hmm.
and like the design principles, or try to keep it so it makes sense, it flows. It's not they look at it and you're all over the place. Keep it short and sweet, but effective at the same time.
Yeah.
Which that can be challenging.
And what's the whole thing that they point out in the article that affects that simplicity? Why do we need to keep things simple? Cognitive overload. Sounds like something that happens to a robot when you ask them to do too much. But yeah, I mean, I'm no brain scientist, but a lot of this brain theory is getting established to the point where they kind of know certain things, right? I can now tell my students it has been proven that you cannot focus on two things simultaneously. As much as you think you can look at your phone and be listening to me at the same time, you cannot do that. We know your brain does not function that way. So this idea of cognitive overload, that, you know, our brains are kind of pre-wired with circuitry that can handle a certain amount of information at a time, and we need to be able to do that just to live our daily lives. But it can become very easy to overload those circuits. And they split it out in that graphic between sort of like the language and the video. That's sort of the different channels, and each channel can handle so much. But then remember, you're asking your brain then to be processing both of those channels and then trying to combine those two together to get meaning. And then it's also trying to draw from previous understandings and put all that together to get that into long-term memory. So you just want to be careful. More so, I mean, it did come up with the graphics too, and that was about trying to simplify. You don't have to do an entire diagram. You can suggest it with a couple of lines, sorts of things. But in video, it becomes even more important because the time element is there, that things are moving by at a sort of predetermined pace. And if you're not allowing people enough time, so putting pauses into the video. I mean, yes, the students may have control over starting and stopping, and that can help. But you don't want to force them to have to do that in order to just watch a video. So you want to pay attention to the pacing of your material. Even just things like, I mean, the reason so many talking head videos are shot in front of just like a blank background. You may think that it's nice and it sets the tone to have bookshelves behind you and, you know, all of that kind of scenery in the background. But if that's not doing something to support what you're trying to get your students to understand, that's going to produce some of that overload. They're going to be sitting there trying to figure out what the books are, or, you know, people who are obsessed with organization are going to wonder why all the books of the same height aren't all together on the shelf, or why is that one red book over there when the rest of the red books are over here. All of that can draw people away from what you're trying to do. So, you know, it's the old acronym of keep it simple. You know, keep it simple, silly, or stupid, but I don't like calling people stupid. But that idea really you want to pay attention to with video. So whether it's filming you as a talking head or an individual as a talking head, whether it's graphics. I mean, there we're combining. You put a graphic in a video for students to look at. Make sure that that graphic follows all the Gestalt principles and also helps to feed into whatever your core message is for your video. Pacing is a big thing. One of the reasons a lot of people are starting to use animation is because in some ways you have a lot more control over the simplicity. You can still get that personalized look of a character, but you're not even having to process necessarily an entire face. It can be taken down to a line drawing sort of a thing. So keeping that in mind as well. So all of that is just a long way of saying keep it simple. Beware the cognitive overload. All right. What else? What else did you take away from this?
The personal touch.
Yeah, I like that one. And so talk more about that.
Yeah, so they mentioned like showing your face sometimes is not so much as graphics. I think they talked about humor or things that just it's not.
Yeah, and actually there's one piece of advice they give in this that I think is a little counterintuitive, especially for people who are first just maybe starting to do instructional video types of things. I don't know if anyone else caught it or happened to notice, but it came down in that area of, yeah, in the make it personal. It says speak quickly and in a conversational style with high enthusiasm rather than a formal style. And I've seen a lot of instructional videos and just videos in general where I think people feel like they have to take on this sort of formal persona, and they have to talk slowly and read carefully. And what's going to be the result of that, especially if you have middle school or elementary school students?
Fall asleep.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, the reason that actors are taught to speak more slowly is because they have to overcome distance. They're having to fill a space and get their voice to project across distance. And it is known that in those situations, you have to talk a little more slowly for the words to process. But here we're talking about a video where the person's probably sitting right there, they have headphones on, and they're able to see, especially if your face is on the screen, they're getting all the same information that they would get if they were sitting there talking to you for real. So that advantage of slowing down kind of goes away, where you should feel like it's okay for you to just talk like you and to talk at a normal speed and to talk like you would talk and to use expression and to use humor and to do all of that. And that's going to engage your viewers a lot more than trying to be very formal in your presentation, right? So that's something that stuck out to me because I think that is a slightly counterintuitive piece of advice, but I think it's a good piece of advice to keep in mind. Be yourself, right? The reason you want to put yourself in the video is to make that personal connection. If it's an instructional video and it's taking the place of you standing in front of your class and talking to them, you want to make it as close to that experience as possible so that they're engaged, so that they feel like they're there. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. All right. So yeah. But that whole personalization principle is good. They're talking about including visuals of the instructor talking with the slides is more engaging than just the slides alone. We respond to human faces. That's what we're wired to do. So the more you can have there. All right. What else can we add here? Use your face. Use humor. Any other takeaways?
Keep it to 6 minutes. I thought stood out to me.
Oh yeah. So that's another thing that we've found is that particularly if it's about one topic, you go on too long and the students are going to tune out. I think I come at this from a weird direction, from a music direction, that Why are all pop songs 3 to 5 minutes long? And what I've come to learn over the years, and from a songwriting standpoint, is that we will pay attention to something for only so long if it doesn't change. So if they're looking at a video where basically it's all kind of the same design and the same types of graphics and the same voice and the same subject, I think that we, again, just as humans, can only pay attention to that for so long before we start to go, oh, this isn't something new. It's not something that's going to threaten me. I'm going to start looking for something else that I need to pay attention to. So this idea of segmenting, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about up here. Wow, that was weird. If I shake the mouse, the pointer goes, but I did not know that, and it doesn't stick. Why would, okay, now I'm weirding myself out. But yeah, so keep it short. Again, going back to, it's the same. We read that whole chapter for our Moodles on segmentation. That's just sort of good teaching theory of making sure that you're chunking your material in a way that is accessible. By keeping your video segments short, then your students may not have to stop, rewind, replay. If you can kind of control how the information is grouped, they can get through a whole video without stopping and then kind of process that before they move on to the next one. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I think that the first thing in the article is a big one, which is planning. I can't tell you how many videos I've seen where it's kind of obvious that the person just said, oh, I know what I'm going to be talking about. I'm just going to sit down and turn the camera on and just talk for 10 minutes. Unless you're a really skilled orator, it never really works out very well. In terms of, from another standpoint, from just keeping your material organized in a way that makes sense. Knowing what you need to say and what you don't need to say, planning what kind of graphics you need to include, whether you're going to show your face, whether you're going to be showing a graphic, whether you need to have text on the screen and a graphic. So, go into it with a plan. And that can go a long way to making a bad video better, as if you just go into it knowing what you want to do. And that also ties into the second area they talked about, which was about using it appropriately. Don't assume, yes, videos can be very engaging and they can be very interesting to watch. And we all know that students will tend to just get sucked into a video because they're sort of programmed these days to look at videos. But it's not going to be the best solution for everything. So just making a video out of something isn't necessarily the best solution. So they talk about, using it appropriately. Look at what are your instructional goals, and then is video a tool that's going to help reach that goal? Maybe not the best way, but maybe one of the best ways if you want to present something in a couple of different modes. So all of that planning, taking that moment to really think through, create a script. I know that kind of goes against what we were just saying about the personalization, because then immediately when somebody reads off of a script, it tends to get very wooden. So practice speaking the script. Or if you don't want to read off of word by word script, at least bullet point out what you want to talk about and in what order. Make sure you hit the things that you know you need to hit, so that everything is in the video that you need to. And then realize if you get something in there that's not supposed to be there, edit it out. That's another thing I can't understand, is when people leave things in videos that were obviously mistakes or not meant to be there, when it takes 5 seconds to trim that out and make it be gone. So, all right, but yeah, a bunch to think about here. I had kind of gone through and tried to draw parallels between the Gestalt principles and what they talked about, especially in the cognitive overload section. For me, the continuity principle, which was that one of how we tend to continue lines, we tend to follow arrows on pages to certain things. That kind of ties into the signaling principle that they talked about with the video, where by providing cues, you make the viewer look at a certain place, or you let them know this is the important thing, or using things like first, second, third, like helping them organize what they see. I mean, we already talked about how that proximity thing ties into the segmenting. It also ties into what they call the contiguity of sort of knowing what goes together. So there are a lot of similarities there. So hopefully it's not like reinventing the wheel with video. It's more just expanding. You know, it's like going from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. Only rather than adding 3 dimensions visually, we're adding a third dimension that's time. Now we've got images that are changing over time, and so working that into the mix. All right, so the activity that we're going to engage in is this wiki. And so, whoops, let me save those changes. So let me talk really briefly about the wiki activity from a Moodle standpoint, because this is one of the things you might find you want to add into your Moodles. So the way, well, what is a wiki? We hear that term a lot. Does anybody know what a wiki actually means? Why do we call something a wiki?
No idea. Never thought about it.
Does anyone know where the word wiki even comes from? It's actually, my understanding is it's from a Hawaiian dialect, and it's from a word that means easy. I think it's actually wiki was like the term, which means easy. So wikis developed because in the early days of the internet and web design, you really had no choice if you were designing a web page but to know HTML. You had to know the programming language. You had to know how to code a page so that then it would show up the way you wanted it to show up. So it was kind of like a specialized few had the ability to create web pages and to really manipulate websites. So then, of course, somebody said, well, there's got to be an easy way to do this. And so these wiki packages were designed. We would probably call them more like drag and drop today. But the idea was we're going to build a framework within which you can pretty easily create pages, link those pages together, put content on those pages, and then we'll deal with how that has to code on the back end and turn into HTML and so that everybody can look at it. So that became known as a wiki. It was basically an easy to design web page package. So the way that they use it here is kind of in that mode. So a student on your Moodle can't really create content because A, they're not an administrator, they don't have teacher access, but also because basically all of this is going through HTML. I mean, we're looking at this on a web page. So this is essentially a web page that's been created. So they wanted to give an activity within Moodle where students would have the ability to create and structure content kind of however they wanted to do it. So that's what this little wiki activity is about. And it's pretty straightforward because it's basically just creating pages. Those pages can have any type of content on them that any other text area can in Moodle. So you can format the text, you can put in links, you can put in videos and content and things like that. So all that other stuff. But then what you can do is the students can very easily create new pages. And on any of the pages they've created, they can also really easily add links that allow them to link between the pages that they've created. So it basically gives the students a chance to create a structure. So if you want to have a group of students research a topic and then create like a little mini website about that topic, this wiki activity would be a way that they could do it inside your Moodle structure without them having to get a Wix website or something like that. So in terms of technically how it works, this instructions page is actually a wiki page. When you create the activity, it's got no content and no pages in it. So the first time you open it up, it's going to ask you for, you want to create a new page. And you give it a title, and it will create that page. And then you basically can start filling it in. So when I created this page, I created it, and then I went to edit, and I got this text box for this page that's now called instructions. So most of it is, as you can see, it's text. I put in a link here to the article. I just did that with a hyperlink. So I copied the URL of the page where the article was, and I made it a link. But the key to these are these things that have the double square brackets around them. And this is really the key to the wiki activity. If you or your student or whoever's using it wants to link to another page or to create a new page, you do it with these double square brackets. So if a page does not exist already and you want to make it, all I would have to do is say, come down here, and I'm just going to do double square and say new page, and then double square. Now when I save that page and go back to it, there will now be this new red link here for new page. And when I click on it, it's going to take me to this. I can give the page a title. Well, actually I can't right now because I just created it. I keep it in HTML. That just means the standard text. And I say create page. Now I've got a page here. This is a new page, right? And then if I wanted to put a link back to my instruction page, I go square, square, I think I called it instructions, square, square, and save that page. And now it already puts a link in that when I click it takes me back to my instructions page. All right, so that double square bracket both tells it to create a new page if one doesn't exist with that name, and then allows you to create links between the pages. The only thing you have to do is keep track of what you've named the page. That's going to be whatever shows up here. That's the name of the page. So sometimes you just have to kind of jot down, here's what I named these pages, because if you forget that you used a number sign or something like that, then it won't find it. But that's basically how it works. So very easily, basically what I've done here is I set up sort of 4 subgroup pages, and I got those pages started. But I could then divide a class up and have each one go to one of those pages, and then from those pages, they could create their own subpages that branch out and link through each other. So it's a fun, maybe that's not the right word. It's an easy way, it's a wiki way to allow students to create multiple pages of content and kind of organize them in a way that they want to use them. Or for you, I mean, you could also use this to kind of, if you want to organize a whole series of pages of content. Just be aware that students will always be able to edit anything that you put in a wiki, because everyone has editing permissions. So even though I created this as the teacher, any student could come in, hit edit, and could do things to it. So just be aware of that if this is something you want to use. All right. So that is the overview of how the wiki works in Moodle. So here's the activity. And what I'm doing in my brain is quickly trying to figure out how to do this, because I thought we'd have a few more people here tonight. Obviously, we're not going to have 4 groups, because with only 5 of you here, that's essentially you all work by yourself and 2 people get to work together. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of cut this in half. Each of these pages has a video on it already that's linked. And the idea is for you and the people you're working with to watch the video. And then in this space where it says links to analysis pages, you will go in and edit the page, and you're going to create 3 new pages with the double square brackets. One is basically the pros page, one is the cons page, and then one is going to be a page of suggestions. If you were talking to the person who created the video, are there things you would suggest to them to do to maybe improve the video from an instructional standpoint? All right, but you will create those pages. All you have to do on a page is go into edit mode, and then you can put in, and you see, like for instance here, I've got the link back to the instructions page. so that is going to be the activity. So it's a little bit of just getting used to using the wiki and creating pages. On those sub pages, if you want to put a link back to the group page, you can put that in. That's kind of up to you. That just makes it easier to get back and forth between the page with the video and the sub pages. The only thing that is true is that only one person can be editing a wiki page at a time, at least within Moodle. And I think they just do that so that it doesn't have to resolve different. If one person types one thing and somebody types something different, it's not going to know how to coordinate those. So when you're working in your group, maybe sort of designate one person to be the person who's typing the content. Or once you get the sub pages done, one person could be on each sub page, however you want to organize it. But so in your small group, you're going to watch the assigned video, discuss it, analyze it for strengths and weaknesses, kind of like we did with our graphics a couple weeks ago. Then off of the wiki page for your group video, you're going to create group, and then whatever your group number is, strengths, group, and the number weaknesses, and group number suggestions. And then just put I don't want this to take all night, a paragraph on each page. It could even be a set of bullet points if you want to keep it like that. So on the strengths page, what did the video do well? What ideas did you see in the video that you might want to try to do in your own videos? On the weaknesses page, where did the video fall short? How do you think student learning would have been impacted by those weaknesses? And then finally on the suggestions page, like I said, if you were advising the creators of this video, what might you suggest to them to do in order to improve it? So then just save those wiki pages, double check them so that you know that when you click on links, they're going to the right pages and so on. And then we'll kind of come back together and see what people came up with. And I think what I would like to do in the interests of the time we have tonight and the number of people we have tonight, we're just going to go into two groups. So we'll have one group of 3 and one group of 2. And I know that's a little unbalanced, but unless we want to cut somebody in half, which I don't think we want to do. And what we'll do is have one group do video number 3. So one group will be group 3, and one group is going to be group 4. So we'll just use those last 2 videos and not the first 2 videos. So how do you guys want to divide up? Who wants to be the group of 2? Who wants to be the group of 3? We could draw straws. We could flip a coin. We could have a cage match. Maybe not.
Let's do this.
I know I would not come out very well in that particular instance. So it's up to you guys. However, so front of the room, back of the room. I feel like we've done that before, but if you guys are okay with that.
We have 3.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sure.
So, all right. So the 3 of you here in front will do group 3's video, and the 2 in the back will do group 4 video. So whatever it takes, there's a good chance we could probably get out of here a little early tonight. That's not by way of telling you to rush through this, but we are kind of moving through things pretty well tonight. So I'll just kind of keep an eye on things. When it looks like the 2 wiki pages and sub pages are ready to go, then we'll come back together and kind of look at stuff.
So maybe that in groups, so you better. Oh, yeah, never mind. I'm looking at.
Yeah, there are headphones, which should be plugged into all the computers. If for some reason they're not working, somebody might have unplugged them to plug in their own. Like for example, I can tell right now yours are.
No, it'll be fine. It'll wait.
They will, because here's the plug for
Yes,
That's all. It's that air as a conductor
Got
thing.
it.
It doesn't always work. So yeah, again, start by just watching the video. They're all 3 to 5 minutes long. I tried to pick things that weren't terribly long. So just kind of watch the video, make some mental notes, and then when everybody in the group's watched, get together, discuss it, and then figure out how you want to attack the creating of the wiki pages and what you want to put on those pages.